What is up, Scrub fam? I'm back with another video. And this one is a special one. It's been a really requested one as of late. I see a comment on a lot of my videos asking for me to do a deck profile on Broly. And so, yesterday, I was getting ready to go play in a shop tournament, and I didn't know what to play. And so I was like, let me brew a Broly deck. It didn't look exactly like this one. There were a lot of differences in that deck yesterday that I made changes to today in order to improve a lot of the deck's weaknesses that it had yesterday. But overall, the idea and the fundamental strategy of the deck worked really, really well. And so that's what I took out of yesterday. Yesterday, it was 5 rounds. I went 3 and 2, so 60% win percentage. And won some matchups that I really, I wanted to win. But I also didn't see matchups that I really wanted to see. And that's okay, that happens. But the deck in general has the ability to be really powerful and to win a lot of games, especially as we move forward, just because of the core and key concepts of the deck and what I wanted the deck to do and how now it does that even better than what it did yesterday. So, for instance, I think yesterday over Fury Shells, I was running TNs. I was only running 2 Gohans, 2 Kales. I didn't have further instruction Champas in the deck. I mean, there were a lot of things just that I was missing yesterday that I really got a lot of data from playing all the games yesterday and learned a lot. And so let me go ahead and talk about the key concepts of this deck. So number one, I don't run the Broly package. I've always disliked the Broly package. I've never been a huge fan of the Broly package, especially with Broly, because I just don't feel like it's that powerful, and I think you end up subjecting yourself to some really bad plays when you're playing that package with Broly. Because how are you going to make yourself energy efficient with it? How are you going to make it so it can't be countered? You just run into a lot of situations where you just lose a lot of advantage from trying to go all in on the Broly package. And you have to think about the amount of times you'll actually activate the 5 or 6 drop Broly, especially the 5 drop, because you have to evolve into it, especially in this format. It's nearly impossible with Cell, being able to just kill your 1 drop with no problem, and especially all the spells that you can play to kill something. And so you have to think about that. So your 5 drop is basically unplayable. So you're almost playing like an unplayable card in your deck. And then the 6 drop costs you 4 green to cast. So you have to get to 5, 6 energy, turn them all sideways just to play the 6 drop. So it doesn't really make sense to play all those cards with a leader that doesn't generate too much card advantage. In fact, I actually think that, this deck's called Broly Control. I actually think that Broly is one of the best control leaders in the game, especially as we move forward into what the format looks like now, where basically everyone has access to removal, everyone has access to cards, so and you have to think about what your weak matchups are. So like Bloodlust, we have to make Bloodlust almost like a non-factor, and at the same time, we have to make sure that we can manage the Cell matchup. So that's what this deck does, and that's what this deck's designed around. And we really go all in on the leader being the biggest control aspect of the deck. And so that's how the deck plays. So let me go ahead and just jump into the profile for you guys, and I'll explain that as we go along. So first off, let's just start with Broly himself. Broly on the front side, just this card cannot attack battle cards. Whenever this card attacks, both players choose 1 card in their hand and discard it. Of course, you combo that with Broly's Ring. You don't discard, but your opponent has to discard. The real way we win the game is with the backside. So it can't attack battle cards again, but when this card attacks, you draw 1 card, and then both players choose 1 card in their hand and 1 card from their battle area and place those in the drop area. And so this is where the true control aspect of the decks comes in. Of course, we're going to have the Broly's Ring, but we're really using this as removal throughout the course of the game. Because a lot of decks are only going to be able to play 1 threat per turn, and Broly is going to allow us to mitigate that. And of course, we play removal in general to help with additional threats, because when you get to this side of Broly, you want to make sure that your opponent's board is clear, so that now whenever they play something, you're killing it. So your opponent's not getting an opportunity to do much, and that this deck ends up basically just going into a defensive shell, playing defense, and then waiting to win the game through attrition. And so this leader, especially the backside, gives us all of that advantage in the world, because he provides removal, he provides card advantage, which it's a 2-card swing. You draw a card, your opponent discards card. And so this is how you end up steamrolling your opponent in value, and you'll close out the game. As you can see, again, I don't play anything in this deck that's over the cost of 4. My finisher really, I'll go over that when I get through the list, what my finisher actually is. But in general, this leader is highly undervalued right now in this format. And I think right now he has a really sweet spot in the metagame, because again, there's a lot of decks that are only playing 1 threat per turn, and there are decks like the Goku Black deck, which that's why we have to play removal aside from Broly so we can clear out threats or clear a board, do what we need to do so we can get them back to only playing 1 threat per turn. So now let's go into the card choices. So I'm playing blue and green. So I'm playing 4 Bulmas, 4 Boos. Bulma mostly just, that's like about this deck. I'm playing a lot of cards that just get me extra cards so I can maintain card parity, as well as they're cheap so I can put them on the board and I have them to be able to sacrifice to Broly's ability. So 4 Bulmas to go fetch the 3 Whis. In your control and control matchups, you're going to be playing the Whis because, number one, your opponent, especially even if they're playing Bloodlust, they're probably going to let it resolve because they're expecting you to play other things. And that's another reason why I almost call this deck Wait For It, because your opponent just the entire time is just waiting for you to do something ginormous, but you're not. You're just playing the long game. And so you'll play Whis because mana acceleration helps, like I said, in control and control. Otherwise, you're just fetching your next charge for the turn, which is really helpful. We play 4 energy boosted Majin Buu. This is just a cantrip. Just play this, draw a card. It helps us dig through the deck, dig further to what we're looking for. For instance, if you don't have a Broly's Ring, you can just dig further with it. If you need to dig for removal, it can allow you to dig for removal, defense cards, things like that. So I love this card in this deck. 3 Jocos. This is for defense. It's almost like another negate, so we can play a total of like 7 negates in the deck. It really helps you close out a game. Also, shout out, an opponent yesterday was forced to Mafaba a Jocko because I was swinging for game. So that was pretty funny. Because I actually played a Jocko, swung, then you had a Mafaba Jocko. So it was pretty hilarious. So that's blue. And then, of course, I run 4 Whis Coercions. Just because it's simple negate, easy negate, I just have to leave 1 blue up, and I can defend myself multiple times per turn. 4 Sensu Beans, same thing. I can leave them up at the end of the turn, and then I'll have plenty of defense for that turn. And then also on my offense step, sometimes if I want to make 2 plays in a turn, I'll often use a Sensu Bean to untap some energy, so I'm good to go. And then for green, we have 4 Broly's Ring. You have to play it with Broly. It makes the most sense. I don't play Paragus or anything like that. So yeah, I am subjected to not drawing a ring, but again, that's why I play cantrips and things like that in the deck. And sometimes I'll just ask my opponent how many cards they have in hand. If they have 1 less card than me, especially if they're on the play, I'll swing anyway and ditch a card from hand just to start the pressure. And so we have the 4 Broly's Ring. Then we have 4 Bundle of Curiosities. This is something that I didn't play this deck up until now because I was missing. It was because I really wanted more cantrips, and this is just 2-drop cantrip. Play it, draw card. And so basically it's copies 5 through 8 of Majin Buu. It's great when you need, again, something on the board to be able to sack to your Broly ability, but again, helps you dig through your deck even further so we can start getting to our, our end game and continue to put out the pressure. We have 4 of our 10k boost draw card. Have to play them. We have 4 Furious Shells Vegetas. Yeah, like I said yesterday, I was playing TNs. The TNs were a huge liability. The more and more I play TN, the more awful it feels. My mindset when I first built the deck in the morning yesterday was like, oh, if I can just get the Broly's front side as soon as possible, we'll be good to go, we'll be Gucci. But no, you just don't have enough advantage, and you haven't seen enough cards in your deck at that point to make it worthwhile. And now your opponent just gets to put pressure on you every single turn. So I dropped TNs, put in 4 Furious Yells, because a lot of times the opponents attack me anyway, because they, I don't know. Cell does it, androids do it, and so I just run the Furious Shells just in case they don't do that. And of course, it's a double striker, and it has the activate mean to be able to kill anything, and that's what I wanted in the deck too. Was just more additional pieces that could just remove without conditions. 3 Determined Super Saiyan Son Gohan kills anything. That's why I'm playing it. And then of course it has crit. And then 3 Hidden Awakening Kales. This is probably the best card in the deck, mostly because that's critical. And then it can just clear multiple things off my opponent's board, especially if they're on the same plan as I am of playing multiple little things, because this will just clear out 4 to 5 of them with no issue. And then, of course, when it attacks, if you have 5 or less cards, you draw a card. And so this is pretty relevant too, especially against Cell, because this helps us refill after they've dumped their hand to make their play. This deck has a really favorable matchup against the Union Force Cell engine. Main reason why is because they're only playing, like I said, 1 threat per turn anyway. And so even if they drop you down to 3 cards, you just have to protect yourself from the Cell, or just tank it if you want to get the extra cards if they swing with the 7-drop, and then you just can kill it by swinging with Broly or playing a removal spell. And so this card it's one of your finishers, and it's one of the main reasons why I run Furthering Destruction Chop on the deck for both my crit threats, is because I just want to be able to deny my opponent's cards. I like this at 2 as opposed to 3 or 4, because I don't really want to draw multiples. I only want them when I want them, if that makes sense. And so that's really what it comes down to. Lastly, as I said, talk about a finisher. The finisher is Cell's Absorption. I know, it's crazy. Cell's Absorption, this card. This card is supposed to be bad. Nobody plays it, except for Danny Hype, because he's a smart kid. But No one plays LOLZ Absorption. And my thought process again for cutting the Broly engine was like, how many times do I really activate the Brolys per game if I'm playing as Broly? And maybe like once or twice. Why not just play something that's cheaper and guarantees me they're discarding 2 cards no matter what? They can't interact with this card. Your opponent can't interact with this. There's no negate an extra card. That doesn't exist. So opponent can't bloodlust it. They just can't deal with it. And so that's one of the yellows. Anybody that plays yellow and bloodlust decks, they know that like their hand size is important to them. So anytime you can force them to have to discard cards, they're either going to have to discard their combo pieces or discard their cards that can play on their turn, or they have to start discarding their counter spells, which they don't want to do. They're going to clutch those like they're gold. And so LOLZ Absorption helps in that matchup. Of course, it just helps in general. A lot of times, I'll get my opponent down to 3 or less cards before they awaken. I'll LOLZ Absorption before they awaken. So now they'll either be at 0 or 1 card. And now they'll awaken, and then I still have all the advantage. I still have a ton of cards in hand. And if I haven't awakened yet, that's usually a huge boon because I can just swing and they pitch a card without me having to give them a card. So this card is incredible. Again, it's the centerpiece of the deck, and just this is what really brings this deck and this archetype all together, is because we have plenty of removal, we have plenty of disruption, and then we have an ability to close the game with either our leader attacking with Champas, or we have our Hidden Awakening Kale, which usually ends up being the finisher of the deck. There's a lot of times, like I said, you just get your opponent down, you keep having to swing with your leader, they keep having to pitch a card, and then they'll want to take the life because they want to regain that card, and then you're just going to put back your opponent into a corner. And all you have to do is just play conservatively, play defense, make the game go long, and then you're going to be able to close out the game. And so this deck, like I said, this deck has legs. Like, playing the games I did yesterday with a less optimal build, and then, of course, playing some games today and getting some testing in with this version of the deck, it feels so much better than it did yesterday. And yesterday it felt good, but I just had to upgrade some pieces. I had to take out the TNs and put in the Fury Shells. I had to put in a 3rd Gohan and a 3rd Kale. And then now I feel really good about a lot of matchups. So this is a deck, if you're going to your locals, if you're going to your shop tournaments, if you're playing on Octagon, this is something you should test out heading into regional season, because this deck just has a really good spot because it can hurt anything in the metagame, and then again you have a really good matchup against anything that plays just 1 creature per turn once they get past turn 3, 4, and 5. And of course, even if your opponent is playing tokens, this deck has a really good matchup against Ghost Tanks, because all you have to do on their turn, they play the Ghost Tanks, you bean, and then on your turn you play the Kale, and then you're going to kill the Ghost Tanks and all the tokens, and so Kale ends up being X for 1, and then that's insane. So, again, I think the only, like, yesterday my matchups felt like my worst matchups were, like I said, the Danny Hype Cell deck, but that's only because I'm pretty certain I played that matchup wrong, and I know that going forward. And, of course, my opponent he's a great opponent, Jimmy Bacon. He's a great opponent. He's a really smart player. And I just felt disadvantaged the entire matchup. I think I just played poorly. And then, of course, I played against a blue-green starter deck Goku, which I TN'd early, put myself down to 4, and then now he was putting pressure on. I had him down to like 3 cards, but his 3 cards just happened to be bananas. Like, he ended up having like 2 Gotenks still, and he had a boost attack Piccolo. And so he just proceeded to kill me with Gotenks and was playing 2 threats per turn, so there was just nothing I could do. And so, and I was lacking removal because I only had the TNs, and I only had 2 and 2. So I had just a lack of removal plus just my leader ability. Whereas like now I've play tested that matchup today, and so I'll just end up playing one of these guys just to kill the threat, and then swing with Broly, kill the other threat because they have to sack it. So that's what I did to improve that matchup in general. And then also I just wanted a way to close the game, so I ended up making space for the 2 Furthering Destruction Champas, because there was a lot of times where I just had my opponent down to 2 life, and I was just grinding them away until they got down to 1. And basically all my games were ending with them having 1 card in hand, me like 3 cards in hand, me LOLZ Absorption them down to 1, swing with Broly. They either have to negate, by that time they've probably run out of them, and then they just discard the card and they just have to take the damage. Whereas now I can do that sooner because of the Furthering Destruction Champas, and of course these combo really well with the crit cards. So this deck has legs. This is a deck I'm going to continue to play, continue to work on. This is going to be in my gauntlet going forward, again, because it's something that people don't necessarily know how to play against. They don't have a ton of experience playing against this build of a deck or this type of a deck, and so this has a really neat spot in the metagame. Anyways, I just want to share this with you guys. Now, I've been testing and I've been messing with Bionic Frieza ever since it was revealed. I've made tons and tons of deck lists. I'm still working on finding the right thing. My findings are so far, I don't want to play 3 colors with that leader. Like, you can't just take it in the Try Again You Shell and then make it the same deck. It just ends up being bad. So now I'm transitioning to just doing a blue-yellow build, which is why you saw me post on Candy Shop that I was looking for the 4 Tournament Pack 2 promo Friezas, because playing stuff early in this game is good. It's a theme of set 2. Anytime you can play something earlier ahead of schedule and do something incredibly powerful, that's how you're going to end up winning games. If you look at Union Force Cell, if you look at Bobbity Black, if you look at the different the black builds or the Bobbity builds that just play stuff early, play big stuff. That's what I'm trying to do now with Bionic Frieza, because now you can play objections on turn 1, so you can accelerate your mana, play the 4-drop, sack 2 yellow things, play the 7-drop, and then now you have a giant threat that's killing things every single turn. And that can also be a finisher for you. So I'm working on blue-yellow Bionic Frieza right now. I think that's going to end up being the sweet spot, because the thing that a blue-yellow Frieza deck missed before was, number one, you had to run too many of the Frieza engine cards, which was always felt pretty bad, and then you also needed a way to awaken, which was results of training. So now if you just remove that element of needing results of training and you have a leader that can provide card advantage for you and self-awaken, you can just take that same archetype, build it mostly heavily yellow, and then still have a really good matchup against a lot of the field, and you're not going to get overwhelmed by aggressive decks, whereas like the three color Bionic Frieza decks get overwhelmed by Gotenks, and Gotenks is incredibly strong in this format, and so I'm working on that as well. So I'm working on the draft box leaders one by one, and of course I have the Goku one, which I really like, and I'll begin working with as well. But otherwise, Bionic Frieza, like I said, I'm off the tricolor plan. I think it's 2 win more, and there's too many extra cards that you want to play, and I'm more so on the blue-yellow plan, because that's the sweet spot of all, where I want all the extra cards I want to play anyway, because I want to play objections and beans and coercions and balls and bloodlust and all that stuff. But anyways, shout out to my sponsor, Bearded Collectibles. They're amazing. Shirts are coming up really soon. We just got the test prints back. Quality's good. Should be up on the site really soon. And again, if you're looking to buy any sealed product, Alec always has the lowest prices. He's easy to communicate with. He's a big face in the community, big beard in the community, and he's always incredibly supportive of everybody. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this deck profile, and I hope you try it out. I hope you try out these brews, especially this deck. This deck is a thing, and it's gonna be a thing. And I just need more people to put their hands on it, continue playtesting with it, and just let's figure out the build together. Because honestly, I do think Broly has a sweet spot in the metagame. No one's prepared for it. So anyway, let's work together. Let's get better together, because we're all a bunch of scrubs. Okay, bye.